Thursday night footy, Port Adelaide taking on Carlton. I'll tell you what this one is. It's a real don't turn the TV on Monday if you're one of these clubs, because they're both sitting around the same point in media markets that will hound them if they lose this game.
So they can watch all weekend when all the footy shows are on, not on Monday.
Why Monday? What will we do it Friday?
Well,
Saturday,
Sunday? Some of the major shows, aside from Sunday morning, some of the major shows, the opinion shows, do come Monday. 2:25 for the Blues. Do you think they can turn this ship around?
I think there's a chance here. I think neither of these two teams are playing very good football. They're both 6 and 8 coming into this one. I think the Blues probably have a little bit more of that emotional side of things to play for. If Ken Hinkley hadn't had the succession plan in place, I think there'd be a fair bit of heat on him at the moment, but he's kind of just faded into the background a little bit. So I think Carlton have a bit more emotional investment in this one.
Smart move from him there, I reckon. Tom de Koning only has a few more games left at Carlton. How's he going to go?
So they give up a lot of disposals, the ruckman at Port Adelaide. So Max Gawn had a fair bit of it. Now I'm going to tell you, have a look at that 151 there. So before Mark Pitnet was out, that was $1.72. So our traders think that that is a pretty good price to go after. $1.72 into $1.51, 20 plus Tom de Koning with no Mark Pitnet. Does the whole ruck work himself, and he gets 20.
You must have a dinner reservation on Lygon Street as I look to your best bets here.
I like Carlton. I do like Carlton in this. I just feel like sometimes there is a game where your backs are against the wall and you come out and you do the job you need. And Charlie Curnow, I think, is the man tonight to get them over the line.
Yeah, I like Jace Burgoyne in this one. He's my best bet for 20 plus. 4 of his last 5, he's had 20 plus. He's $2.10 as well.
Rosie, 25 plus. Only twice this year he hasn't hit that, so...
I'm with you. Curnow 4 plus. I reckon he's going to carry him on his back. Enjoy the game. The Baggers. Welcome everybody to In the Back Pocket, a massive round 16 of footy coming up when we hit a break it all down, betting, otherwise everything in between. Zach Toohey, Kate McCarthy, Nathan Brown.
Felix.
Now, you know what we're doing every week now?
What are we doing?
Accountability. We've each got a bet that's going to roll across the weekend. Not just any bet, our best bet across the weekend. We did it last week and everybody got theirs up, didn't they?
Yep.
Yep.
I did. Void.
Just confirming, everyone got theirs
Yeah,
up?
it's fine.
Yeah, everything was fantastic.
Lied.
So we're going to roll through with the same thing this week, straight off the top of the show, where your best bet is across the entire weekend. Brownie, kick us off.
My very best bet this weekend is John Newcombe. His disposal line is 23.5. So 4 of his last 5 games he's played against the Kangaroos at 30 plus. He loves playing in Tasmania. So out of all the clubs that John Newcombe plays against, his figures are best against North Melbourne. And I feel like he does that again because North Melbourne don't tag. He's fresh, he's off the bye, over 23.5. That's the safety, but I'm also going to back him at 30. But my best bet, 23.5.
I am going to the ruckman against West Coast Eagles, and that is
275.
Darcy Cameron for 20 plus. He had 19 last week against St Kilda, who are mid-table for their rankings for disposals against ruckman. So I like him for 20 plus. I like him for any time as well, but we won't put that one in this.
Too.
I like it. Good value.
Trying to bounce back from the void.
Well, if he's out of the team this week, we all know it's the curse of my multi. So.
Jordan Dawson, 25, may be the best player in the competition, certainly one of them. So 3 of his last 4 games against the Tigers, he's cleared that 25. The one game he didn't, he got 24. I expect him to be too big. I expect Adelaide to dominate the game, and he's going to get plenty of chances.
Loves the G too.
He loves the G.
Expecting to be too big rolls right into mine. I'm going back to the well for the second week in a row. Sam Darcy, 3 plus goals. $2.12. It was $1.70 last week, so we bumped it up to above $2 here. But I just think no matter what, he's going to be able to get that 3 plus. I do like to go to 4 and 5, but we're going to discuss a little bit later on the show. Is Sam Darcy the guy to be chasing for a bag on that one? Make sure you follow all of the tips on the feed. You can catch them all week in, week out on that feed. Let's jump right into the report card as Nathan Brown just giggles to himself over there. The Swans taking on the Western Bulldogs. Puntability, Nathan.
It's an A. This is a good game. It's a great game. An A. I'm happy with this as an A. You've got Marcus Bontempelli, Ed Richards, you've got Isaac Heaney, Bailey Dale. Unfortunately for Bailey Dale, there's no roof there this week, so it's a buyer beware.
It's an A for watchability for me. And you know what? And maybe I've spoken about the Swans a lot on this, but have you heard the story? Yeah, maybe, definitely. Have you heard the story of the ugly duckling?
No.
You've never heard the story of the ugly duckling? It was a little duckling, and it was ugly. It had no friends. They made fun of it. They teased it. And you know what it turned into? A beautiful swan. Oh. A well-coached, non-injury riddled swan is what it turns into. And I think that's what we're about to see from the Swans on the back half of this season.
Oh, Disney himself, eh? Have a look at him go.
Oh, good one, Nathan. Ed Richards.
Ed Richards.
You went with him last week. Are you going back to the well?
I've got to buy beware here for Ed Richards. The number 1 rated player in the competition. 8 of his last 8, he's had 25 or more disposals. But how can you not tag him? Everybody's talking about him, the way he carries the football, his scoreboard impact. So you look at James Jordan, who you said tagged him last year, so you'd have to think he's set for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he definitely goes straight back to him at the first centre bounce of the game this year. Played him last year, obviously. He was in pretty good form in the back half of last year. The first half of this year, though, has completely eclipsed that form. Ed Richards, he's the number one kick inside forward 50 in the entire competition. Why would you not tag him? I think that's where Jordan starts.
The Dogs mids throughout the year. The Dogs have given us a lot in a betting landscape, but their midfielders have certainly paid up.
The gift that keeps on giving, the Dogs midfielders. So you've got obviously Kennedy in there, Liberatore. You got Ed Richards as well. So look at that, 9 of his last 10 games at 25 plus and $1.76. Matthew Kennedy, 8 of his last 10. Libba, so 70%, 90%, 80%. And then you throw Bontempelli in there at 36 last week. So you can be not safe when you back the Bulldogs, but you know they're going to get a lot of the football. They are a high possession side.
Well, you've been doing some great reviews of teams throughout the year, and the Bulldogs, I think, are going to be one of the most interesting ones.
Well, they are. They're an interesting club to look at. And I think right now, if you were doing a draft of players currently in the AFL, picks 1, 2 and 3 could all be Bulldogs players. So you've got Darcy, Bont, who could be All-Australian despite missing 6 games already. And then statistically, the best player in the game, Ed Richards, who you just spoke about. So it begs the question, if you're an opposition coach and you're going into this game, who is the player you tag and who is the one of those 3? If you could stop them, you'd stop.
Well, if I'm Dean Cox this week, it has to be Ed Richards. So his scoreboard impact is better than any other player in the competition. So every time he touches the football, you're likely to score. So I'd look at that and go, well, if I can stop that, you don't get as much free passage through to Sam Darcy, who could likely kick 5 or 6 on a small ground. If I stop that, then I'm going to go head-to-head with Marcus Bontempelli with one of my bigger, say a Mills or something like that. So I think it sets up for that.
I completely agree. I think the ball going into Sam Darcy is as important as his matchup. So if he can stop kicks to his advantage, make it slightly more hard for him. He's a hard opponent no matter what. But if the ball is being delivered to him to advantage, good luck stopping him. The man doing that, Ed Richards.
I'm taking Sam Darcy out of there.
Yep.
I'm thinking you can go ahead, Ed Richards, fire it in there to Aaron Norton the way that he's been playing. I think Sam Darcy, again, is the total crux of this team.
Well, the issue with the mids around the ball is their clearance game. So if you let the Bulldogs get clearance, it ends up on the scoreboard. So it's very good stopping Darcy. You got to stop the guys inside. So they're number 1 clearance team in the competition. Once they get it out, it ends up in a score. It's good night. And then you look at their record against the best teams in the competition, and that is where you need to perform your best. 6 times they've played teams in the top 8 currently. 1 win, 5 losses, and you can throw Gold Coast in there as well, who are just outside the 8 on percent. That's another loss.
It's not good reading, is it?
No, it's not. And they found themselves in a position now with 4 interstate teams currently in the top 8 and them holding on to the bottom half of the top 8. They're angling towards an interstate final, which is the last thing any team needs. So I'm really bullish on what they can do, but they just need to clean up that form against the good sides.
I like it. What's hot? What's not?
Let's have a look at what's hot and what's not. Who are the players who are getting the job done? Callum Mills, since he's come back in, 4 of his last 6 games at 20 plus, and his last couple have been 25 plus. Jarman Impey, he's been going well. 4 of his last 5, and Tom Liberatore we've already looked at, but that's a pretty good price to put in his same game multi when you know he's going to do it 70% of the time.
There's more flames in that graphic than there was last week.
There is.
It's getting hotter on the what's hot list.
I tell you what, where it's not hot, it is in the cold section, and that is Jack Higgins. Started the year really well. None of his last 4 games, he kicked 2 plus. Nick Larkey. So the reason here, 3 plus goals, because you have to back him at 3 plus to get any sort of value. 1 of his last 5 games, and Zach Merritt, not through any fault of his own, but he's been moved around. He's been half back, he's been wing, he's been half forward, so he hasn't had a big game for a long time. Obviously at Essendon, and you just couldn't back him at the moment, not knowing where he's going to play.
Yeah, that's a tough thing with Zach Merritt. For a while there, he's one of the best bets, especially at those big margins there. Let's go through our best bets. Brownie, kick us off.
Best bet for me, let's have a look at it. I'm just rolling through. Tom Liberatore, 25 plus.
I've gone Joel Frazier 20 plus. Now, the reason I have is because you said the mids are the gift that keep on giving. I think Joel Frazier has missed out on a fair bit of midfield time with Adam Treloar coming back into the side. Treloar is now out of the team with that calf injury. I think his percentage in the midfield goes up, and I think he's clears 20 plus.
I've gone back to my go-to man. You will see a lot of Matt Kennedy when it comes to me punting on this show. 25 plus disposals. I love him. I think he's a wonderful...
The Bison.
The Bison.
You follow the hot legs on Sportsbet. He's always good for a goal as well.
Throw him in for a goal.
Very good value. I'm going with Sam Darcy. I'm going with 4 plus. My best bet of the weekend is 3 plus, playing a little bit more conservative because we want to be moving up the standings in that one, but I'm going 4 plus. Now, Zach and I were talking a little bit earlier. when you start betting on there's always, it feels like value in the 6-7 range for Sam Darcy to kick, these big bags of goals. Is he the sort of guy that you can see kicking the 10s and 11s like we saw Buddy kick back in the day? Because in order to do that, Sam Darcy is very key forward, lead and mark. Buddy's a guy that would get it, snap. Jesse Hogan's another guy that they can get goals in a big variety of ways. Can Sam Darcy do that in order to kick 10? Because it's very, very hard to do that purely just off in today's game being a leading forward.
I think he's the next person to do it, the next forward to do it, maybe a 12-month period. So I look at that game on the weekend and he had the best matchup. Noah Bolter was nowhere near him on multiple occasions. So I looked at that game last week and that could have been that game, an 8, a 9 or a 10. He kicked the 5 obviously, which is a great return, but you give him that again, that opportunity again next year against that sort of opponent like a Richmond or a West Coast, I think it's coming.
I think his value also lies further up the ground because he is such a good field kick on his left or on his right. And the player that really needs to get going for the Bulldogs is Aaron Norton because he should be at times sitting deep and getting the ball lace out from Darcy, who has taken the best defender away from him. Yeah. And I think Darcy's average at the moment is 2.8 goals a game for this season.
Norton's been getting the best defender though. He had Wilkie 2 weeks ago and he had Miller last week. So Sam Darcy's been getting a good run.
He needs to start to up his game. But yeah, Darcy is a player that can completely take a game away.
I'm looking forward to he gets it. Remember, we're going to be back after Friday night footy right here on Fox Footy. Set to be a cracking game. And we're going to break down all the rest of the weekend. Saturday games, maybe even Sunday. Enjoy. Welcome back to In the Back Pocket, a big Saturday of footy coming up, and let's kick it off right now. The Gold Coast Suns taking on Melbourne. Report card, Brownie?
It's a B. It's not a bad game to punt on. High disposals from both sides. I expect Petrarca to go well, Anderson to go well, Rao to go well, so it's a good game to punt on.
Not many players left to go well there. Means test. For me, it's a B on the watchability. For this one, if you're Gold Coast, if you're Melbourne, you need to get a win here. We're going to take you seriously moving on from here. The head-to-head, I do think it's one of the tougher ones to pick, even though it's $1.39 to $3.02.
Yeah, that $3 price is very tempting. I think this is going to be a close contest. I do expect Gold Coast to get the job done up there, but you're just not sure what you're going to get from either side at the minute. And this is a danger game. If they drop this, I think we really need to start considering they might miss the 8.
I think 3 losses in a row for me, the Gold Coast Suns. There is going to be a whole lot of weight put on this game from Damien Hardwick that they need to prepare. They need to go in. They need to be clinical. Because would this not be the biggest disaster of 2025 if the Gold Coast Suns did not make finals? Genuinely, this has been the story of the year for the Suns. This will be the year that they make the 8. They will play finals for the first time in their club's history. They are looking like they could stumble and not make it in the end.
Is that the worst bet of the year, to make the 8 $1.78?
100%.
Yes.
I feel like I've never been catfished in my life. I imagine if they didn't make the 8, this is what
I think
it
they
would
win
feel
this
like.
game, though. I think they're a lot better than Melbourne when they play at home. I think they're going to run Melbourne off their legs. Obviously, the only thing that's an anomaly at the moment is what do Melbourne do with the break? What have they done? What have they got new after the bye? But I genuinely think Gold Coast win this game comfortably.
Someone who's due for an explosion, 40-3, is Christian Petrarca.
He certainly is. And I'll tell you why.
Has he ever had 40-3?
Well, you know what?
Has he ever had an explosion?
We'll see you guys on Monday when he's had 40-3.
Good one. Okay, so they rank 17th the mids and they rank 17th the general defenders. So that explosion comes in the form of Christian Petrarca. His disposal line, 25.5. I agree with you. I would have used a different word than explosion for Christian Petrarca.
What's wrong with the word
explosion?
explosion?
Just a big game for Christian Petrarca.
Hawthorn taking on North Melbourne. John Newcombe, you're big on as well.
Oh, it's back to me.
It's back to you now.
Happy with John Newcombe. So he performs better against North Melbourne than any other side. 4 of his last 5 games, 30 plus, and he loves playing in Tasmania. So I'm happy to go. His disposal line's only 23.5, Zach.
That's
Isn't that
a number.
that's your bet of the weekend?
That's my bet of the weekend.
That's it. That's going in your one that we record and
That's
analyse
an
next
explosion.
week. What about something's about to explode? Collingwood taking on the Eagles. It's probably not going to be in the Eagles on this one. Whenever we see Collingwood versus the Eagles playing in any games, we look towards the line more than we do in the head-to-head. Zach, is there anything palatable about a 6-goal line?
There's not really. I don't fancy Collingwood to drop this one. I don't think Collingwood are going as good as we've seen them go, but there's not a world I can see where West Coast get anything out of this.
The maths works out there as well, 6-goal
Yeah, I was going to say, I was
Isn't it
trying to think about it.
60.5? Yeah, they're worth 10, aren't they now?
It's palatable, though.
It's certainly palatable.
It is at Marvel Stadium, which Collingwood, they don't play overly well. We wouldn't say, I think if it was the G, that travel does put them out. They have to do it obviously the day before to make sure that they get there. But I think they're not quite as reliable at Marvel as they are at the G. So I think the line could be in play. But The player that I'm going towards is Darcy Cameron. We always look, Nathan, you love this stat, West Coast Eagles up against, any ruck playing against West Coast Eagles, they ranked 18th for disposals conceded to the opposition ruckman. Darcy Cameron last week, he had 19. He had 4 shots on goal, kicked 2 goals, 1. I like him in a little same game multi in this one. I like him for 20 plus and I like him anytime goal, which is $4.75, which isn't bad for a 2-leg multi.
There was a bit of media talk last week that Darcy Cameron, people saying the second most important player at Collingwood. Do you eat on that?
I'm in on that. I think he is a wonderful player. So obviously, I think ruckmen get a bit of a bad rap these days. The fact that you can go out and get a cheap ruckman and they can do the job for you. What he does is outstanding. So he gets behind the football. He's a strong mark. He gives them silver service around the midfield, and he goes forward and kicks goals. He's a strong player. I've never seen him shirk an issue when he has to go back with the flight, and a lot of ruckmen have to go back with the flight. Every time he does, you can count on Darcy Cameron to do the right job.
What about the Eagles? Can you count on anyone right now for them?
No, apart from maybe Tom McCarthy, who's been taking the kick-outs. So imagine this, Zach. Imagine this. First game of his career, comes in, has 31, has 10 kick-outs and 10 play-ons. Extraordinary stuff. So you'd have to think it's worked for him last week. You're going to give him the kick-outs again.
And you feel like Collingwood would probably get a fair few shots on goal, whether they're accurate or not. You're always going to kick a number of behinds if you kick a number of goals, so he might get 10 again.
Never heard of Tom McCarthy, but he's
brother.
at 31.
It's a tough job kicking in. Don't talk down about it. It's a tough gig.
What about your best
Standing
bets?
out of the square.
John Newcombe, over 23.5, best bet of the weekend.
My best bet, Darcy Cameron, 20 plus. I think he gets that and clears it nicely.
Cam Zurhaar, another one of my favourites, 2+ career best is the bull.
I'm going the North Melbourne line here. Now, I reckon this, and we're going to talk to Horney about this, I reckon this is one of the better bets. Now, North Melbourne fans have been tricked, and we've all been tricked by a false dawn before from North Melbourne. And I worry that we're moving towards that. It's for that reason with our best bets that I went towards Sam Darcy at the $2 mark for 3+ rather than North Melbourne at the line here. But I do think this is one of the better bets that we're going to see across the weekend at 2.5.
I think they can get close. I think Hawthorn down there, it'll be very close. I agree with you, 32.5, but I do like Jai Newcombe. I haven't been this confident in a bet in a long time. So I'm not going to say bet of the year. I did that with Massimo D'Ambrosio last year. It did get up on the wing against the Giants, I think it was. But he loves playing against the Kangaroos. He's coming off the bye. He is fresh. The Kangaroos don't tag. 23.5 seems like a really low line for him to cover. So Jai Newcombe, best of the first half of the year.
What?
That's brave, isn't it?
I was about to say, do you remember the last time you went this confident into a bet? What were the results were?
Massimo D'Ambrosio,
It was. What about the time before that?
I can't remember. Okay, I'm going to bet of the year. Jai Newcombe, 23.5. This is the bet of the year. He goes over.
Well, Brownie, for me, this has a bit of a feel that the Hawks could really put North Melbourne to the sword down there. I think they're coming off the bye. I think there's a few things in their game that Sam Mitchell will have addressed that they need to improve on. And North are riding high. The last month they've been pretty good and I've been impressed with their performances. But is this a game where you sort of lured into a little bit of a false sense of security about how you're going? You start reading your own press. You start to think, oh, maybe we don't need to prepare the way that we have previously. And Hawthorn, they come out and make a bit of a statement. So I'm not sure if that line could be in danger.
Well, because I trust your opinions. You guys are elevated opinions above mine. I trust when you guys speak,
I think back
listen.
yourself in, though. Back yourself
Stand
in.
strong.
The one thing that does, even though you're saying, yes, it may be a false dawn for North Melbourne, the fact that there's not too many blowout games over there in Tasmania has me feeling a little bit more confident. But if I do want even more confidence than that, we go to the smartest man in the AFL, Daniel Hoyne. Time to welcome in ChatGP Hoyne, the master of champion data, who's just been sitting here for the last half an hour riffing about every single stat and analysis you could possibly imagine. Let's get into this weekend's games because I reckon North coming up against Hawthorn, the line sitting around 32.5, could be one of the better bets of the year so far.
Yeah, fascinating game on Saturday between Hawthorn and North Melbourne. And the reality is that if North Melbourne are to get this victory, a lot of it is going to be based around what Tristan Cherry is doing. Because over this 8-game period where they're 3 wins, 4 losses and a draw, we can all appreciate that, they have improved and what have you. But profile-wise, big picture, there's still a lot of red flags in terms of what North Melbourne are doing, so reluctant to jump on that. But at stoppage and at clearance, that is their strength. So over the last 6 weeks, they are the #1 clearance team in the competition. North, and they're coming up against the bottom 3 clearance team in the competition. Over the whole season, when North have had success, it has been on the back of dominating clearance, not just winning it, but having to dominate it. So with the way that Lloyd Meek is going at the moment, rated outside the top 200 players in the competition, Tristan Cherry rated inside the top 10 players in the competition, that is where they could get Hawthorn. If Hawthorn can somehow break even and just mitigate the damage a little bit, what North have to throw at you outside of the clearance game is bottom 2, bottom 3 in the competition still over this last 8-game period. We talk about the turnover game a lot on this show. That is 65% of the game. Not good. 35% of the game good. Can they absolutely dominate that area of the game?
So after the game that Hawthorn played against the Giants, and I went with Lloyd Meek, could be all Australian. I went a bit early, just a bit early in that game.
Look, I don't know how to say this, but yes, no, you went way too early, Brownie, unfortunately.
What about Caleb Windsor? He's starting to drop off a little bit. Hasn't quite had the year that he wanted.
Yeah, so I'm interested in this guy. I think we can all see some assets and some attributes that he can bring to the table. And taking pick 6, pick 7, wherever he was, first year started on the wing, and the relative ratings there is looking at how far above or below expectation you played that season for your age. So first year in the system, he's played 22% above expectation. So really, a really good start to his career. This year they've moved into halfback, performing thereabouts to expectation. So not horrendous, but nowhere near at the levels of his 2024 campaign. And I might be going out on a limb here and a little bit ridiculous, but I feel like he has attributes and assets that Max Holmes has. And Max Holmes came into this system in his first 2 years as a winger, because we looked at you and you've got speed and you've got run, and we're just going to let you go. And his first 2 years, very similar profile to that. And then they looked at it and they go, no, you're too good for a winger. We're going to throw you into the centre bounce, and we can all understand and appreciate Max hasn't looked back. Caleb Windsor in his 2 years has not attended one centre bounce yet. And there's been a lot of talk over this bye period that Melbourne are going to reinvent their midfield. They're going to change it up. Petrarca, Oliver, Viney, we all can appreciate that they don't use the ball as well. Ball use is king in 2025. And I'm always curious around when a team has a bye, what changes post-bye? We see it happen a lot. This kid, I think, has the attributes, as I said, to be a Max Holmes. Whether or not he gets thrown into the centre bounce, and just let him go. Let him get the footy, let him take off, and let him explode and be a 2025 midfielder.
See, I think the reason he's lost his spot on the wing is because Harvey Langford's come in and has played such a great role on the wing for them. He's up there with Rising Star. He could be sort of thereabouts. Could he be the one also? It could be twofold. He moves into the centre bounce, and then Windsor gets his spot on the wing back, because I was watching him last year. I was nothing but impressed by his work rate, his ability to run, to get contest to contest and help sort of defend and attack on the end of it, as a good winger does. But I don't think he's a halfbacker. I don't think he's a halfback flanker, and I think that's been quite detrimental, as you can see in the numbers, to his game.
Yeah, this is a temptation teams have with really young, talented players, is to see them flourish in one position and go, oh, this would be nice if it was running off half-back or even inside too early. So with somebody like Max, they let him cut his teeth outside, and he got used to the pace and the contested nature of the game, and then moved him in. Don't move him too soon. If he's still struggling in 12 months, then that's, for me, is on coaches and not the player.
Are we convinced he's an elite kick? I know Melbourne want to change the profile. Nothing I've seen shows me that he's an elite kick yet, and he does still make mistakes. I know he's young. Always hard, I think, coming up in your second year. Racehorses second up are hard work. A rock band, always their second album's always tough. So there are reasons, but I don't think he's an elite kick yet. I think he's got some work to do on his kicking.
Yeah, I don't think he's an absolute, Ed Richards type ball user, but I don't think Max is either. I think Max is more the penetration, get it in there, and the speed and the run as a point of difference. So maybe you're right, maybe it is another 12 months' time, but I think this guy's too good of a player not to be trying to maximise.
It's a good one to put on the radar, I like that.
Windsor aside, the D's come up against the Gold Coast Suns this week. I think it's one of the toughest games to predict of the round, because both these teams can throw up absolutely anything. Do you think profile-wise, turnover percentage-wise, where do you sort of sit with this one?
No, I'm still going with Gold Coast. I think Gold Coast did a lot right on Sunday against GWS. Accuracy played a significant part in that game, and their 2 losses beforehand against 2 reasonable teams in Fremantle and Geelong as well. It wasn't horrific, so I'll be surprised if Gold Coast don't win this.
I think it'll be a high possession game.
Yeah.
So the Gold Coast are ranked 17th against mids and also general defenders. So they're going to let Melbourne get a fair bit of the football. So Petrarca, Oliver, these guys will get a lot of the football. So too will Anderson and Rao. So when you're betting in this game, it is midfielders, it's general defenders getting high numbers.
I have slightly more trust in the Gold Coast Suns than I do have in the Demons this year. What about the Adelaide Crows? So we hear Pies, Brisbane, Geelong in a lot of the premiership talk. Adelaide's the one that kind of gets forgotten about a little bit.
Yeah, so they're doing a lot right, Adelaide, with their profile, and I feel like that we've spoken about them a lot this year. Turnover game, number 2 in the competition. We know how important that is.
Oh, very.
But I feel like this year, probably more so than any other year, it's important to deep dive into the next layer, into how's your record and how's your profile looking against the best teams in the competition. I think there is a pretty significant gap between top 9 v bottom 9. And again, that bye theory where you actually get 2 weeks to review your footy program properly. And as you can see there with that profile, defensively Adelaide, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Clearance-wise, post-clearance, all that sort of stuff, really good. Offensively, they are the worst profile of any team in the competition against the best. Ball movement-wise, they're the 2nd worst ball movement team in the competition against the best. Their forward 50 functions the 4th worst of any team against the best. So trim the fat, get rid of it, and I'll be surprised if they haven't done this. We're going to be playing finals. We're hopefully going to be challenging for a flag. What are we doing against the best? Well, clearly ahead of the footy and offensively is not working against the best. Yes, it gets the job done against the bottom 9. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in that. We are not challenging Collingwood, Brisbane and Geelong with throwing nothing at them offensively. So I'm curious as to what they do. I know they're playing Richmond this week, but you've got 9 games left before final starts. Don't waste it. What do you do this week against Richmond that looks different compared to what we saw pre-bye?
You said that with such authority too. I really liked it. I'm sitting here going, how good is this guy at media? We're wasting his talents.
It almost sounds like you
I'm enjoying the company with you guys.
like you really want Adelaide to win. That's what it sounds like, because you're like, they just got to live. No, but you're fantastic. We need to bring in a behind-the-scenes segment, because the amount of stats and analysis you just riffed off in the last 30 minutes before going to air is absolutely...
We need to show the people the machine he wields.
Yeah.
To get everything all calculated.
You alone have made me just rest assured that AI has a long way to go before it takes the job of human beings. Thank you, Hoyney. We'll be back very soon. Here we go, big Sunday of footy. Richmond taking on Adelaide. Hoyney has just told us that Adelaide, they like beating up on the bottom teams, and they're going to get that here in Richmond. Do you think the Tigers can pull a rabbit out of the hat?
No, I don't think they can. Adelaide tend to put a big number on the teams towards the bottom half of the table, and I expect this to be no different. I think they're a team that have premiership aspirations. Whether I think they can get there or not is a different story, but I certainly think they've way too much for the Tigers.
They're going to score. We know that. Who's going to kick them?
Yeah, well, they are going to score, and I think the player that is going to score, or the players that will score, are the general forwards. So Richmond, they rank 18th at matching up on those general forwards, so they concede the most goals in the competition to small forwards. The player I'm looking at is Josh Rachele. If we have a look at his last few weeks, he kicked 5 against the West Coast Eagles, 3 against Sydney, 3 against Brisbane. Before the bye, they played Hawthorn in UTAS. It was a low-scoring game. There wasn't a whole lot of goals kicked anyway, and we know how much they struggle to kick goals against good teams, as Hoyney has just told us. But I think he goes big. I think 3+ is where I'm looking. I wouldn't be shying away from 4+, though, for Josh Rachele. And even the Keezer.
Normally you like Benny Keys. You got against the Keezer.
I think Rachele's in better form, and I think they're looking more towards him. And Keezer plays more of that defensive role at times. I think he is a bit of a downhill skier, though, so he should hit the scoreboard as well.
Downhill skier.
At times. I do love the guy. I probably should redact that. I love the Keezer.
That's true. It's exactly
he
what
can ski as well uphill as he can downhill.
Nath, I love it when you get really niche with your research and how you approach these bets. And as I look down my rundown, Nath likes Jordan Dawson specifically at the MCG.
Specifically at the MCG. So loves the spaces of the MCG. 2 games this year, 33 and 27. Now, Richmond don't tag. So I don't think they'll put a lot of time into him. He'll be fresh. I like him at the MCG. The only caveat here is sometimes he spends a lot of time forward, but I don't think this will be one of these games. I don't think they need him to go forward, and that's normally when he has been tagged. I don't think Richmond will tag him, so I'm confident in his 25 plus. He's a good price with a big explosion type game to have 30 plus.
He could explode at the G. That could be dangerous sort of stuff. Let's take stock, Zach, on the Adelaide Crows right now, because Hoyney's saying they need to drastically change what they're doing when playing against the good teams. What do you think they need to do, and where do you see them right now?
Well, the surface reading is actually pretty good for the Adelaide Crows. So they have the second stingiest defence. Only Collingwood have conceded fewer points over the course of the season to this point. They have the third most potent attack in terms of points scored. So that looks great on the surface, but then you realise most of those points for come against the smaller teams.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking at the total points for, which we are there, 15.5 goals, I think they probably clear that. I don't know what you think, Brownie. You're usually pretty good when it comes to this market, but I think they probably clear 15.
Happy to go over. They're a high-scoring side. We know that. So, and Richmond don't defend that well. So Richmond will maybe kick 10 for the game. I feel like Adelaide probably kick 17. But when it comes to finals time, they're tall forwards. Can they stand up?
Yeah, the composition of this forward line is a concern for me. So on 6 occasions this year, 2 of the 3 forwards have kicked multiple goals. Only once was that against a top 8 team, and that was Geelong, and that's a game they still lost. So when the game turns into a chaos game in finals, which has been well documented, it spends more time on the ground than it does in the air. If they're not kicking goals, I'm not sure what they're offering you, so I'd be very tentative to look at them too far into finals just yet.
Got your reservations about Adelaide?
Major reservations. So
Major enough to take the $2.30s and miss the top 4?
Yeah, I'm looking towards that market more than I am them winning a flag at the minute.
A tough one to predict. They may have catfished this as well in that little portion of the season. We don't want to get catfished. Gold Coast Suns might be doing the Adelaide Crows might be doing it as well. Let's crack more into the Sunday footy though. Fremantle taking on St Kilda. The report card, Nathan.
Yeah, it's not a great punting game, so I have got this as a C. I'm just not sure about who tags who and what's going on there. So just a little bit of a nasty one if you want to dive too far in.
Game aside, the contest itself, golden time slot. It's on a Sunday. You know, you just got some reheated Chinese in the fridge. I don't know what you're doing. It's just relaxed into the couch. Perfect time for us over this side of the country.
It is without a doubt. And they are coming hard, Fremantle. So they've won 5 in a row and they get another opportunity here against a side that they should beat at home. And the big question mark I want to raise with you guys is the tagging. So we know that Marcus Windhager is going to tag somebody in this game. He's been tagging everybody. So do you Sarong or do you go Brayshaw? For me, if I was the coach, I'm going Sarong every day of the week because I think he's more damaging. They're both going to get 30 if you let them go, but I think Sarong's more damaging. So I'd look at his disposal line and go, I think I'm going to go under.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd go Sarong as well. I think he's the one that has shown with footy in hand how damaging he can be. In saying that though, if you're confident it's Sarong, then you're going to definitely go for Brayshaw with your disposals because usually when Sarong's down, Brayshaw sort of reaps the reward, but it is a little bit buyer beware as to knowing where Windhager is going to end up.
Sarong's still the value play for the Brownlow at the moment?
Big play. So I think his 2 best ons, I've got him down for the last 2 games. I think I've got him 1 vote behind Bailey Smith and Nick Dacos at the moment. So if I got him 1 vote off and you're looking at him at $13 at the moment, that is a value play because they'll play, well, he and Brayshaw are in for most of their votes. So if you think of, okay, if they've got the 1, 2, 3, most of their winning games, they're either the 3, 2 or the 1. And then maybe a Tracy comes in and plays well. But most often than not, those 2 vote.
He catches the eye much more than Brayshaw. The stuff he does is kind of more on the outside. It's slightly more flashy stuff, so Sarong.
Luke Jackson, Champion Data's highest rated player last week, which is saying something considering how well Bont played that weekend as well. Does he do it again this week?
Yeah, look, I'm looking at him sort of both disposals and goals. And the reason I'm looking at goals is for this. St Kilda ranks 16th against key forwards. I know he's spent a large chunk of his time in the ruck, but he does push forward for that resting forward role. If we look at the goals that he's kicked the last couple of weeks, he had 2 against North. He had 3 last week against Essendon. So he's hitting the scoreboard as well as getting plenty of the footy. So I like him for an anytime goal. I also don't mind him for 20 plus because he doesn't just play as a ruck. He plays as another midfielder when he's in there, so he can win his own footy. He can get his hands on it. They want to give him the ball as well because they know how well he uses it. So he'd be someone I'd be really looking to if you're having a bet in this game.
Are you moving Sean Darcy on if you're that football club?
Without a doubt. Like sitting here right now, the best ruck in the competition in the last 5 weeks has been Luke Jackson. It's time that they realise that. I know that it makes a hard decision because they've got a whole lot of their capital with their salary cap tied up in the two players, except that maybe you've got that wrong, that you need to move one of them on, and I would not be moving on Luke Jackson right now compared to when Sean Darcy plays.
Are you worried about the persistent rumours that Luke Jackson might want to come back to Melbourne?
Yeah, I think you need to clear that up, obviously. You don't. The last thing you want is moving one on and then the other leaves, but if you're able to keep him, there's no way that I'd be trying to keep Darcy as well.
It's a remarkable turnaround, isn't it? Because we all saw the West Australian headlines when Jackson was there in the early days and they were pounding on him. And then he's just turned himself right around.
He's developed well, yeah.
He's developed very,
Plus
very
he
well.
turned a grand final along many years ago, 2021, I think. He was instrumental in them winning that second half.
That two ruck was the perfect combo you could possibly have with Gawn and Jackson. Very, very tough to afford those two the way they're playing right now. But it's time for Big Reggie's Multi of Wonder.
Big Reggie's wonderful multi of wonder. We need to clean up that introduction. That is not how I sound. That is not how I sound. So I'm looking at the Adelaide and Richmond game, and it's Jordan Dawson, who we've already spoken about, 25 plus. Loves playing against the Tigers, loves playing at the MCG. Tim Taranto, nobody else in that Richmond midfield can I trust. I think he gets his 25. Bolton is starting to look like the Richmond Bolton that we've seen over the years gone by. He is as good as there is in the game when he's on his game. And Callum Wilkie, I expect it to live in the Saints back half.
I think I'm going to copy that on the feed. I'm going to go straight into the feed. I'm going to go to Big Reggie's, whatever you talk about, and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to punt on it and then I'm going to claim it as my own.
That is the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a business in that. You might need to just start taking the bets and putting them on the feed yourself, just completely like that. I wonder if anyone's thought that. Yeah, maybe that's the way. You're almost getting stalker level on Callum Wilkie at the moment. You've been riding him the whole year.
It's not the terminology I'd use, but it spends a lot of time in the Saints back half. He's underrated how much of the footy he gets. He plays on the best forward, so it tends to get kicked in his direction. He's
Superstar. Is he Sunday best bets?
Well, as part of his Reggie's multi-world of wonder, I'm going to take Jordan Dawson as my best bet at the MCG for all the reasons he said in his Reggie's.
And a player that did miss out on the Reggie's multi-wonder is Luke Jackson. I like him for 20 plus.
Rory Laird, 25 plus. He's on a 5 his last 5.
The desk.
The desk.
Why is it called the desk?
We've brought up a whole lot of nicknames on this show, but nothing will compare to the desk. Rory Laird, low and wide, just like a desk. I'm going FREO at the line in this one, and mainly I think FREO are rolling, but I just cannot trust St Kilda. There's a couple of teams I don't trust. I don't trust the Demons, and I do not trust the Saints at the moment. So I'm going FREO to cover this one at the line. It's going to be set to be a massive weekend of footy. We'll see you guys all over it. Prime time. Kate McCarthy, that continues again this week.
Get on Zach's feed.
Get on Zach's feed. Get on everyone's feed.
Multi of wonder is where you want to be headed.
Reggie's.
Holding everyone accountable as well on your best bets. I'm with Sam Darcy, 3 plus. You can see all the bets on the feed there. And don't forget, we are back Monday night, 5:30 to review what's going to be a massive round of footy.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.